Parak Lamed, the 34th chapter of Iyov. Elihu, this, uninvited friend, this youngster, has brought himself into the conversation, gave a speech. No one really answered, and maybe now he tries again. Vayan Eliyahu Vayomar, chapter 34. Eliyahu said, again, in a reply, he answered. I don't know who he's answering. It doesn't say that anybody responded to him. Shemu chachamim milav yodim hazinu li. We'll see the first half of the speech is to, presumably, Iyov's three friends. Listen, wise men, to my words. Give ear to me. It's like we said this. He's begging them. If you have to tell somebody over and over again to listen to you, it's because they're Kiozen milin tivchan v'chech yitam le'echol. For an ear's tests are arguments as the palate tastes food. So just like the palate wants to taste food, an ear is there to hear arguments, to hear what I, Eliyahu, is saying, have to say. Are they going to listen to him? Well, they haven't so far. Mishpat nivchara lanu in verse 4, neda veinenu matov. Let us decide for ourselves what is just. Let us know what is good. Ki amari Yov tzadakti. El Hisir Mishpati, because Iyov said, I am right. God has deprived me of justice, of truth. Al Mishpati Achazei Venush Chitzi Veli Pasha. I declare the judgment against me false. Iyov said, my wounds, my arrow is deadly, though I am free from transgression. Iyov even talked about that he was like a person with the arrows stuck into him, was one of the ways that Iyov described himself. And so, like the friends, we know that Elihu thinks that Iyov is guilty. And we continue now in verse 8. We're in chapter 34 of Arach lechevra im poale aven v'lalechet im anshe resha. Who makes common cause with evil doers? Who goes with wicked men? Ki amar lo yiskan gaver birtzoto em Elohim. Because he says man gains nothing when he is in God's favor. Who says wicked things like that? So men of understanding, you, Bildad and Sophar and Eliphaz, listen to me. Wickedness is far from God. Wrongdoing, evil, is far from Shaddai. Kifo al Adam Yishalem lo, ucha orach ish yamtzi enu. Because a man, right, he pays for his action. He's provided according to his orach, according to his behavior. Reward and punishment, very straight, very obvious. Because God can act, can't pervert justice, can't act wickedly. It's not possible. Who placed the earth in his charge? Who ordered the entire world? Is God. God is obvious that God has to do things right. God's the creator of everything. Can't possibly be mistaken. If he but intends it, he can call back his spirit and breath, right? If God wants you dead, you're dead. That's just the way it is. Yigva kol basar yachad ba'adam alafar yashuv. All flesh would at once expire, and mankind return to dust. If you would understand, listen to this. Listen to what I'm saying. Stop not paying attention to me, because I have explained it already. And obviously God is right, and Iyov has claimed his innocence, but Iyov can't possibly be correct, because if he's punished, he must have done something wrong. And we're up to Pasuk Yud Zayin, verse 17. Ha'af sonei mishpat yachavosh. The im tzadik kabir tarshia. Would one who hates justice govern? Would you condemn the just mighty one? You see that word kabir. We've had that a few times. We know, of course, from Islam, Allahu Akbar. It's the same word. Kabir, would you condemn the just mighty one? How could you do such a thing? Haomer lamelech bli'al rasha el nedivim. Would you call a king a scoundrel? Would you call great men wicked? This word bli'al, either bli, somebody who can't go up, or somebody who doesn't have an oak, it's sort of the insult in the book of Shoftim and in the book of Shmuel of people who act improperly. Chana, for example, says to Eli, don't call me a bat bli'al. Don't call me the somebody who doesn't accept God's yoke, somebody who can't do better. Eli's sons, Hophni and Pinchas, the evil men, are called are called Bnei Belial. That's the way they act. So would you call great men wicked? You wouldn't do such a thing. How could you call God wicked? Asher lo nasa pnei sarim v'lo nikar shoah lifnei dal ki ma'aseh yadav kulam. God is not partial to princes. The nobles are not preferred to the wretches, for all of them are the work of his hands. God treats everybody equally, so it's impossible that God would punish Iyov for no reason. Rega yamutu v'chatzot laila yig ashu am v'avoru v'asiru abir lo viad. Some die suddenly in the middle of the night. People are in turmoil and pass on. Even great men are removed, not by human hands. Right? It's not God. It's not that God is favoring certain people. Even the righteous people, we have tzaddik, we have great white righteous people who drop dead at the age of 30. Terrible things happen. Because God's eyes are upon a man's ways. He observes his every step. God knows the actual truth of all of us. In choshech, v'ein salmavet. Sater sham poale aven, because there's neither darkness nor gloom. There's a hiding place for evildoers, right? You can't hide away from God. You can't go and run to Hawaii. You can't go far away and hide away from God. God can find you anywhere, and God knows the truth and the reality. Kilo al ish yasim od lahaloch el bamishpat, because he has no set time for man to appear before God in judgment. God can judge man whenever he wants. I know we have Rosh Hashanah, but okay. Further proves that maybe that they are not Jewish, as we've said many times. Iyov and the people in the book, perhaps from Edom and other places. God shatters the mighty men without number and sets others in their place. You think you have this great empire, the Greeks, the Romans, whatever it is, the next day they drop, they're done. The barbarians come through, they rush in. That's God behind them. God can shatter mighty men. He can do it even without number. Lachen yakir mabdehem v'hafach laila v'yidaku. Right? God knows their deeds. Night is over and they are crushed. They think they have everything. Think back, we haven't yet gotten to it, but we have the writing on the wall. Belshazzar, the king of the Persians, who the Babylonian king, who's king one night and the next day he's not king anymore because the Babylonians are allowed to come into the city and conquer them. We've gone past that part of learning in the Tanakh historically. It happens 50 or so years after the destruction of the first Beit HaMikdash. We've seen past that in books like Yechezkel and other books, but we haven't yet gotten to that. The night is over and they're crushed. The gates are open. The Persian Empire comes in. They're allowed into the city. No bloodshed. And there goes this mighty kingdom, Babylon, gone forever. Tachad Rishayim Sifakam, we're in verse 26, B'makom Ro'im. God strikes them down. He strikes he can strike the mighty with the wicked, where people can see Asher Al Kain, Sarume Acharav V'chol Drachav Lo Hiskilu, because they've been disloyal to him and have not understood any of his ways. God made you. Nebuchadnezzar gave you the power to take over the world, gave the power then to your children, but you didn't listen to him. They didn't listen, and therefore they are gone. What's part of the reason that God does this? Because God hears the cry of the poor. He listens to the cry of the needy. We talked about this many times, and it goes all the way back. I remember it's Sefer Shmot or Sefer Devarim. The person who lends somebody money and takes a pledge is told to return the pledge. If the pledge is the person's pajamas or whatever, you have to give the pajamas back to that person. You have to give them back their blanket, because if not, they're going to be cold at night and they're going to call out to God. And God tells us back in the Torah, that person's going to incur punishment. Ki shomea, God says, I listen to the cries of the poor. I listen to the cries of the wretched. So these people, they thought they had everything, but they weren't treating the poor right, and therefore they were taken care of. So God knows. You can't hide from God. God knows the truth. He watches every step. It's not possible, Iyov, that you could be right. You can't possibly be right in judgment. It's not an argument that we haven't heard before in this book. It's basically the same thing. It's said in a variety of different ways, and there's some obviously different theological statements and different methodologies of theodicy here, but the basic underlying principle that God knows the realities and God has to be judging things properly is the same argument that Elihu is making. So I don't know why he's telling everybody else to listen to him so properly and carefully when everybody else has said this already. Continue in verse 29. V'hu yashkit umi arshia v'yaster panim umi yeshurenu v'al goy v'al adam yachad. When he is silent, who will condemn? If he hides his face, who will see him, be it nation or man? Mimloch adam chanef b'mokshei am. The impious man, right? He is not the ruler anymore. Right? The people who are mokesh, who trap and ensnare, they're not going to run the world anymore. Why? Ki elomer amar nasati lo echbo. Because God, what has God said? I will bear my punishment and offend no more. Right? I'm going to take care of them. I'm not going to allow them to take advantage of the wicked. I'm not going to let them take advantage of the poor, of the hungry, of the biladai echazeh ata reini im avel pa'alati lo asif. What I cannot see, you teach me. If I've sinned, I shall not do so again. Right? If God does not punish the wicked, that's what they're going to say. So it's sort of like in these last couple of verses, he's turning towards Iyov, right? God is obviously acting correctly, he says, but you despise him. Right? You speak what you think you know. Anshe levav yomruli v'gever chacham shomeli. Men of understanding say to me, wise men who hear me. Iyov lo bedat yidaber dvar love lo baskil. Job does not speak with knowledge. His words lack understanding. He can't possibly be right because it doesn't fit in to my preconceived notion of the world where God rules properly and fairly because God knows everything. Avi in verse 36, Yibachein Iyov ad netzach ad tishuvot b'anshe aven. If Iyov would try to limit, right, his answers, which befit sinful men. What Iyov is saying are things that a sinner should say. And everybody knows Iyov is saying the wrong thing. He can't possibly right. You spoke the Yerev Amarav Lael. And in fact, in Iyov, in cursing, he doesn't curse God, but in saying that God didn't do him right and God doesn't serve justice properly, what is he doing? He's adding on to his sins. He's increasing his transgressions amongst us. He multiplies his statements against God. So Iyov, listen to me. Enough already. You've said it. God controls the world. God created everything. God knows right. You can't hide away. You can't say God didn't see anything. So if you are punished, you must have sinned. And in fact, your inability to accept your sin is only making it far, far worse.